Okay, so you know how in January a lot of people are making New Year's resolutions? I was thinking about that. I see a lot of people in my world that are setting reading goals, and I thought, what if you wanted to be more well read? What would that look like? Especially if you're a busy person. And I think a lot of people, when they think of classic novels or like to be well read, the type of books you have to read, that can mean a lot of things to a lot of people. But a lot of times I think people think like the big fat books like Tolstoy or something like that. And it's really intimidating when you look at those novels and you think, I don't have time for that. I don't know that I even want to read that. It's probably boring. It's probably, all these things that they might think about those novels. So today's video is, let's say you want to get well read in 1 year and you don't have a lot of time. Here are 12 classic novels that you could squeeze in probably in a weekend. So without further ado, here they are. Okay, before we even get started on this, can I just say I think you should read whatever you want and not really be that worried about being well read. What does that even mean? I don't know. But if you do have reasons for trying to get into some more classic literature and you need some easy entry points and you need somewhere to start, this may be the reading list for you. But ultimately, read what you want. Find books you like, read that. Don't let people convince you that you have to read this, that, and the other. Unless you're taking a class and it's required reading, then you probably should read it. Okay, so I have arbitrarily broken these down into 3 categories. Category number 1 is books that I've actually read myself. Category number 2 is books that I've at least read part of myself. And category number 3, those are books that I've actually not read, but maybe I will one day, or I have intentions to, or I've heard other people tell me about it and it seems like a good idea. So those are the arbitrary categories. Let's go. Okay, so for category number 1, books that I've read all the way through myself, I'm going to start with Ernest Hemingway, The Old Man and the Sea. Okay, yeah, these are all checked out from my local library because I couldn't find my copies of some of these. This book is roughly 27,000 words long. Now, I'm giving you estimated word counts because we don't actually have exact numbers for some of these. It depends on editions, in some cases, translations. And so this is the best number I could get from the internet. So about 27,000 words. Now, if you don't normally think of books in word counts, the first Harry Potter novel is 74,000 words. So this is like less than half of that, if that gives you a good idea. This is one of the shorter ones on the list today. I read this in one sitting when I read it. And part of what I loved about it was I was just starting my journey as a writer, and I had read a book about writing, and it had all these rules that were like recommended things you should do in your novels. And then I read this book in one sitting, couldn't put it down. It's magnificent. It's like a topic that if you had tried to sell it to me, I wouldn't have bought it because these are not topics I care about. But Ernest Hemingway broke, I think, every single rule in the book that I had just read about writing, and yet I couldn't put it down. So he's kind of a genius of writing, and if you're a writer, don't read this and feel discouraged, I guess. But if you just love reading, it's definitely worth your time and a very easy read. My next recommendation is Peter Pan by J.M. Barrie. Okay, this is classic literature. This is legit classic literature, but it's also a children's book. So it's only 47,000 words. That's actually kind of long for like a little kid book. But like the beauty of this is that you can probably go to your library and find a beautiful illustrated version. So that's fun. You can read it with your family if you want. I haven't actually looked, but I'm guessing this one is an old enough one that it's probably not copyrighted anymore, so you can probably find either very cheap or free copies. of this book. It's fun to read. I enjoyed it a lot. I thought it was very sweet to read it. And again, very short. You could read this in a day or two, probably, depending on how fast you read. If you're a slow reader, maybe longer than that, obviously. But I would think your average reader could probably do this in 2 days, maybe. So, yeah, Peter Pan. It's a great choice. There's a couple of children's books on here, but they're accessible. Anybody can read them, and you don't generally have to worry about the content with children's books, so take that as you will. Now, my third recommendation is Douglas Adams' The Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy. Now, this is like the full collection because there's several books in the series, but you really don't have to read the whole series to just enjoy the first novel. And to give you an idea, this little gap here, that's the first novel. So it's only 46,000 words. Again, that's an estimate, but it's hilarious. So if you are a fan of like Dungeon Crawler Carl, you would probably like this. If you want to laugh, this was one of the first books that I read that I literally laughed out loud while I was reading it. And I laughed so hard reading this the first time. I like cried. I was laughing so hard. It's a classic. I won't let anybody tell me different. Like, if you don't think this is a classic, then you don't read sci-fi. That's what I think. It's kind of a modern classic. I would take that. But yeah, this is a great one. And honestly, this is a very accessible title. A lot of people have read it. And if you're talking to other sci-fi fantasy readers that have been reading for any amount of time, they probably have some knowledge of this book. So if you're doing it for the conversation goals, this is a good one to add to your pile. Okay, so we're on to part 2, and that is stories that I've read parts of. The first one on the list is The Call of the Wild by Jack London. This is only 30,000 words long, very accessible. Again, that's like half of what the first Harry Potter book is, just for reference. And these are older books. A lot of these are older books that you could probably find for free or for very cheap, either online or even in stores. A lot of these, I'm seeing them like paperbacks for just a few dollars. But yeah, this one would be a good one. I read an excerpt from it when I was in school, and for whatever reason, never got around to reading the whole thing. But like, this is one that's on my list to maybe read with my kids one day. So yeah, it's a great start. The next book, I feel like someone might argue about this being a classic. I would say it's a modern classic, if anything, but I included it, The Giver by Lois Lowry. It's only 43,000 words long, so pretty easy read. The reason I included it was because this was a very influential book when it came out. It was very popular. I knew several people who read this just for fun. It got an award, and like they made a movie out of it. And the other reason I included it is because if you are interested in being well read, whatever that means, but if we're interested in that just to be able to talk books with other book people, you're probably going to find a lot of people who have read this book or know about this book, probably have some sort of opinion about this book. So this is a great one to like get you talking to other book readers in that community. Okay, the next book, this is the longest book that I have on this list at 72,000 words, and that's Treasure Island by Robert Louis Stevenson. And the reason I included it is because even though it's the longest of the bunch, that's still not really that long. Like, this is a big chunky edition, but the chapters are very like bite-sized chunks. So you could have this somewhere by your bed or where you sit on the couch or whatever and read it on commercial breaks, honestly, and get through it pretty quickly. The other thing that's great about this is like this would be a great one depending on the age of your kids. If you have kids, you could read this with your kids and have a great time and talk about pirates and treasure maps and stuff like that. And I actually started doing this last summer with my kids, and we didn't get to finish it. We had drama, but my plan is to do it again this summer and actually finish it this time. We were really enjoying it when we had to stop. So yeah, Treasure Island, I think it's a great one. Also, bonus, you can read this and then you have a great excuse to watch the movie Treasure Planet, which I feel like is a severely underrated movie. that's a that's a different YouTube video, I guess. And then the last one of category 2 is The Legend of Sleepy Hollow by Washington Irving. Okay, it's 12,000 words long. Like, this is very short in terms of like an adult reading this. Now, this one would be kind of arduous to read with a little kid, but you can probably find these really cool illustrated versions if you get it from your library. And that's kind of, I don't know if you care about that. I think it's fun when you can find an illustrated version of a book. So yeah, it's fun. These are easy. This is a great little conversation thing. Also, there's like so many movie references that come from this. When I haven't read the whole thing. I've read like half of it because I had like a magazine or something that for some reason had an excerpt in it. And so I want to read this whole thing myself. Like, this is what I'm going to finish before I turn back into the library. But when I read it, then I realized there's so many pop culture references that go back to this book. So yeah, this one I highly recommend. Most people are going to be able to read this in one sitting. So that's also a nice perk of this one. Okay, part 3. These are books that I have not read, so I can't tell you a lot about what they're about, I guess, except for what I've just heard from people. But these are all pretty short, and I have reasons for recommending them. We'll get through it. The first one on this list is Meditations by Marcus Aurelius. Mostly I'm including this because this book was kind of having a moment for a while culturally. I kept hearing people talk about this and about Stoicism. So if you were like, what is all that about? And you thought reading something by a Roman emperor would be too much, this book is actually only 20,000 words long. Not really that long. You probably could read it, in a sitting or two. So if you would just like to know what all the hype is about, this one might be worth your time. The second one is The Art of War by Sun Tzu, and I'm pretty sure I'm saying that wrong. But this book is only 10,000 words long. Again, pretty short. Pretty heavily quoted from other places. I literally, these two books, got these from Five Below, $5 each. So they're out there. They're pretty easy to find. But yeah, especially if you want to like impress people with your, I don't know, battle strategy. Maybe this is the book for you. I also think like there's a certain amount of like gravitas to being able to say, oh, I read The Art of War. Maybe that's why you want to be well read, is to brag to people. So the next one on the list is The Time Machine, which funnily enough, I was going to do The Invisible Man. I don't know how many words long it is, but this book actually has both in it. Look how short this is. So just The Time Machine is about 30,000 words long. That's a pretty easy read. H.G. Wells is a classic. He's done a ton of books that people have heard of. I think the bigger takeaway might be just read a H.G. Wells book, because it's going to come up. It's something that you can talk to people about, especially if you're in like a conversation about classic literature, especially. So yeah, maybe try out some H.G. Wells, see what the fuss is about. The next one, I didn't know very much about. I still don't know a ton about, but I was amazed by the recommendations I got for it. I had done a thing on Facebook just asking my friends if they had any favorites that were pretty short, and someone I knew recommended Slaughterhouse-Five by Kurt Vonnegut. And so I was like, okay, I'll look into that, add it to the list. It's only 49,000 words long, so that's not too bad of a read. And when I went to the library, one of the people working the desk actually saw the book on the table, came over to talk to me about it, and was like going on and on and on about this book. And she was very excited. So apparently this book has some pretty loyal people into it, or at least I've met two that were. So yeah, this is one that I'm interested in reading myself. Kurt Vonnegut, a lot of people have heard of him. He's a name you can throw around in the writing and reading community, and usually it's pretty divisive. People seem to either really like him or really not like him. So yeah, if you're just wanting to read more well-known novels, this might be a good one. Or if you're wanting to be able to jump in on some of those conversations, reading one of his books might be the ways to start. And this one is pretty short, so pretty accessible. And then the last one on the list, number 12, The Strange Case of Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde. This is by Robert Louis Stevenson. He also wrote Treasure Island. It's only 26,000 words long. Now, that's one of those, like, it depends on which edition you get. This is actually that plus other stories, so it's not even this whole, the whole book. But, yeah, it's a classic. Not really that long. Not so old that you're gonna be, like, confused reading it because of language, I think. But old enough that it will kind of feel like a classic and like you've really done something. And yeah, tons of pop culture references to this. Obviously, I think everybody's heard of this book. I probably don't have to explain it. So that's number 12. Well, that's it for my list. My thought was, if you wanted to be more well-read, whatever your reason for that is, whatever that means to you, with these 12 titles, you could do it in a year and read one a month. And most of them you could read in like a weekend maybe. So you wouldn't even have to set aside that much time to do it. And then you have the whole rest of your month to improve in other ways. Maybe go on a diet. Who wants to do that? Anyways, so tell me, what did you think of the list that I put together? Do you have some books that you would suggest that are shorter novels that are very well known for whatever reason? Are you interested in being more well read? What does that mean to you? Do you have a favorite classic that you think it doesn't matter how long, that everyone should read it? I have a lot of books that I really love that are classics. But some of my favorite books no one has heard of. So this was a bit of an ironic list for me to put together. I have a blog where I just talk about books that hopefully you haven't heard of. So today's video is about books that hopefully you have heard of. So put your thoughts in the comments below. I'd love to hear from you guys about this, and tell me, what are your reading goals, if any, this year? And what should I do the next video about? All right, I will see you guys next month.